Hey everybody, so this next video we're going to start with the new right out of the box 901 and we're going to do our power mod to it. But before doing our power mod and probably putting an LDC on it, a Ron trigger mod, we're just going to take the gun as it is out of the box and we're going to baseline it with some H&N Barracuda 10.65 grain pellets just to see what kind of FPS we got. So we're going to first run 5-shot string at 10 pumps, then I'll do just a couple at 20 pumps. I don't want to pump this gun up with the factory abutment pin 20 times more than just maybe for a quick 2 shots just to baseline what she's going to get at 20, because after we do the power mod we're going to put a hardened abutment pin in, replace the factory pin to where we can more reliably pump the gun up to 20 for hunting scenarios and for maximum power. Okay, so for that first shot, we got 615 feet per second on 10 pumps. I'm going to repeat that 5 more times and we'll get an average. Okay, so we just ran a string of 5 pellets through the chronograph and like I say, straight out of the box form. I did apply some oil to the oil sponge in the cylinder prior to testing, but she's averaging right at 605 for a 5-shot string at 10 pumps. So now we're going to do just a couple of pumps at 20 to see what we get. That way we've got numbers to compare after the power mod. All right, first shot at 20. 670. We'll do one more shot at 20 and we'll be done. Okay, we did our 2 shots at 20 pumps. We got 665 and 670, so we're running about 666, 667 feet per second average probably for 20 pumps. So now we'll go in, we'll do our power mods, we'll come back and see what we get. Alright, now we're ready to start disassembly on this 901. Again, this is my first time having a 901. Everything looks very familiar compared to an 880. So I'm going to learn this just as long while I'm doing it with you guys. So I believe the first step is to remove this main screw here on the pump handle / form. Set that aside. And yeah, there's our form / pump handle. And that exposes these 2 shroud screws. And then we've got, of course, our receiver half screws. So I'm going to go ahead and take the stock screw out. Now on these guns, I'm sure they're like the 880s, you need to cock the gun so that the bolt doesn't catch in the breech when you're disassembling the receivers. And this gun looks like it's using the same basically attachment method and type screws for at least the main screws on the stock. Although unlike the 880, it doesn't have the 2 smaller screws also going in the stock. But it does have more screws. It appears 3 at the top of each receiver half. 2 on one side and 1 on the other. So again, this power mod, originally the first time I built one and installed it was on an 880. That's covered in a topic on the GTA's Daisy Gate. The performance numbers and whatnot for it are there. That gun made right at 15 foot-pounds energy using JSB Beast pellets. They're 16, I think, 0.2 grains. So 15 FPE at 20 pumps. 15 FPE out of a new model Daisy 880 is pretty stout. I also did this mod to my 822. So the 822s were made from 2002, 2003, I know, but it uses the same design, piston, abutment pin, and compression tube as these later model guns. So it was also a direct replacement. And that gun as a 22 also made 18 foot-pounds of energy, shooting 18 grain 22 caliber pellets. So I'm kind of trying to keep an eye on these screws, make sure I don't lose them, and make sure I'm keeping up with how many different types there are. It looks like all the top receiver screws are the same, so that's good. All the side receiver screws are also the same in different size. And then the 2 large screws are slightly different. So the rear large screw, or excuse me, the 2 rear screws are the same, and then the forearm screw and the front large screw on the receiver are slightly different, but very similar. So you should use caution when reassembling to make sure you don't get those 2 swapped around. So now we got one receiver half off. There's a second receiver half. Our retaining pin is trying to escape. We got it. Now the stock should just slide right out. It does. Set that aside. And then we can push our flat spring forward, uncock the gun. Very, very similar to an 880. Looks like probably the same mechanism. The frame even looks pretty much exactly the same. Not sure whether it is or not without doing a more detailed comparison, but they look the same. We'll take the front rotating pin out. Slide the piston assembly out. The guide wheels feel like they're catching. So that may take a little effort to get that piston assembly out. I'm trying to be fairly gentle with it since this is my first time disassembling one of these guns. And there we have our valve body compression tube. So compression tube should just wiggle right off. We won't be reusing that with the hard one. And that is important to do. So now we got our valve body out. I just push down on the abutment washer and push the hardened pin in, which will simultaneously push the factory pin out. Sometimes this thing can be a bit of a bear. Alright, I'm just going to remove it. And I believe the factory pins are 3 millimeter, whereas these are 1/8 of an inch. Alright, so it's really tight fit. You can see there it went in, but it was very tight, which makes assembling through the valve body a bit of a trick. But again, the reason we want to use 1/8 inch instead of 3 millimeter is because not only are we going with a stronger material, but we're going with a slightly larger diameter to get the most strength out of this pin as possible. And the reason this pin is so strong, or the reason we need this pin to be so strong, is it's holding all the pressure inside the pressure chamber. I may have to tap that joker in. Usually they're not this tight. They're tight, but I can usually push them in by hand with a bit of effort. In this case, we're going to use a little brass tap. We're going to hold it in place. I'm going to use the polymer side of the hammer. Well, we may not even needed the brass tap. Yep, that went in perfect. So now we got our hardened. Figure this out. I think the problem is trying to remove this piston assembly. I'm glad I didn't try to force it. This is different from the 880s. There is the two front barrel shroud retaining screws are actually protruding into the frame, and they won't allow your piston guides to go any further forward. So if you're ever disassembling these, it looks like we're going to have to remove these two barrel shroud screws to get at the piston assembly. We're going to set those two jokers aside. Well, since I've done that, we can remove the shroud. I wasn't planning on doing that, but there's something interesting about the 901 versus the 880 that I did know about, and this will give me a chance to demonstrate that. And that's this barrel bushing. So this barrel bushing you see here is not on an 880 or any of the 880s, but it is on the 901s, and that provides a little bit more barrel support. Yeah, now that pump assembly will come right out. Here's the two guides. That's what those shroud screws were hitting against. We're going to take our pivot pin out, and there's our factory piston assembly. It's got the infamous limiting dimple in it that people do the mod where they fill that with like JB Weld or what have you. Alright, we're going to use this compression piston, and you can kind of get a look at the difference in the two there. The rods are the same, and we're going to put a little bit of oil on this thing. So we're just going to put a little bit of oil. I know people use different types of oil. Non-detergent 30 weight motor oils, highly recommended. I use this Extreme Weapon Lube Slip 2000 just because I use it on everything, all my guns. So now we've got a little bit of oil on the piston O-rings. We can start to reassemble this guy. So this is the direction your piston arm or your pump arm faces out, and so you want the solid side of your piston assembly rod facing out as well. I know that can be a question sometimes. if you don't remember whether the hollow side faces out or the solid side, face the solid side out. I don't know that it actually makes any difference. That's just how it comes from the factory, so that's how I've always put it back. So to assemble it, first thing we do is line up our pivot pin holes, slide our pivot pin back in. Then we slide our guide back on there, like so. And then we can lower them down in the frame with our new high compression piston. All right. Yowzers. And at this point, we can go ahead and put our pivot pin in there to kind of hold that for a minute. And all right, everybody. So learned something else about the 901 and its barrel bushing. It's actually two pieces. You got a long piece and then the short piece. They're actually close ribs on the bottom of the bushing, and it keys into the studded bushing. So you want those ribs to line up with the slot in the bottom of that, and then those two press together. If it's not turned correctly, they won't press together. This longer bushing will stick out the back of the shroud. You won't be able to get your gun together, and that's exactly what I just ran into. So had to step back and start over. So that's a new one on me with the 901s. So now let's get back to where we were. Got that lined up. Oh, that's aggravating. I lost my retaining pin. So, I'm going to drop our piston assembly in here. So, put this valve body retaining pin in. And we need that in so that the valve body doesn't try to back out while we line the piston up and get it started in our compression tube there. Push it in a little further, just to where I can get the pump arm retaining pin in. Those things can be somewhat aggravating while you're assembling a gun. There we go. Now again, we would need to make sure that the valve body is cocked to get the bolt receiver half on. Oh yeah, that slid together just fine. So we got to watch that barrel bushing when we're assembling the gun. Make sure our baby retaining doors not falling out. Although I hope this gun never sees a BB. I'm very tempted to just go ahead and put a BB block off door on it. Alright, now we've got our stock or butt stock and receiver halves on. We're almost home. That works. Take these long screws. I am a fan of using these screws on the top of the receiver to keep your receiver halves together. I think that goes a long way in keeping that dovetail lined up where your scope mounts. Well, another good thing about 901s, you don't have to worry about that crazy latch spring just in front of the trigger like you do on the 880s. Here we got, you got to watch out. There's two larger bolts in assembling this gun. The more flat bottom panhead screw is for the forearm / pump lever, and the more countersunk bottom screw is for the bottom front of your receiver halves. Those I could see could easily be swapped up if somebody was not paying close attention when assembling a gun. And I don't know if you would notice until you got it done or not. Probably would, since the one countersunk screw, I don't think the flat head panhead screw would go down in the countersink, although that countersink is much larger than the screw, so it's possible it might look like it went there even assembled. All right. Ha! Doesn't look like we're going to have any leftover parts. All right. All right. All right. Oh yeah, even at 3 pumps I can see that that's much snappier. So we got it all together. Looking at the gun now, it looks just like it did when it came out of the box, very unassuming, but we'll go put it through the chrono and see exactly what is different. So we've got our PBL power mod in our new 901. We're about to shoot it through the chronograph at 10 and 20 pumps using H&N Barracudas at 10.65 grains to see what kind of difference it made. There we have it, 653 feet per second. I'll take you guys over here. Don't know how the lighting is, but 653 feet per second. That's almost 50 feet per second faster than factory at 10 pumps. I'll shoot a few more, get an average, but that's pretty close to typical. So the last 880 we did, we got about 40 feet per second increase at 10 pumps. So this new 901 with the PBL power mod, first shot's 50 feet per second faster. So I'm going to run 10 through it. For the interest of time, I won't show pumping and shooting all 10, but when we get the string of 10 through, I'll give you guys the average, and then we'll move on to 20. All right, we just finished our string of 10 shots through the chrono with an average of 647 feet per second. So that's still 42 feet per second faster than the factory stock gun, which basically is exactly in line with what we saw with our 880 with the same power mod. So now I'm going to go for 20 pump string and see what we get. Whew. 753 feet per second at 20. $753. That's buddy, that's smoking. For a factory 901, that is cooking. So now I'll go ahead and finish the string of 10 at 20 pumps. Because we did replace the factory abutment pin with the hardened steel roll pin, or hardened steel drill rod pin, it's safe to go ahead and, I say it's safe. I've never had a problem. You do this at your own risk, but I take my guns with the steel hardened abutment pin up to 20. I've done it for 2 years with no problems, but it's always good whenever you're replacing seals, check that pin. If it is bent, go ahead and replace it. But again, do this at your own risk. Anytime you mod a gun, it can be potentially dangerous, but I've, in my testing, never had a problem, but that's not to say you won't. So in any case, I'm going to take her up and do a string of 20, finish the string of 10 at 20 pumps and see what the average is. All right, guys, just finished the string of 10 at 20 pumps through the 901 for an average of 748 feet per second. That's pretty stout for a 901. The gun is it's very unassuming, looks very factory, shoots still just very much like it's factory stock gun. Pumping effort is still very close to stock. You're not going to strain yourself trying to pump it, and even pumping it to 20 times really doesn't require that much effort over stock. So it's pretty amazing upgrade. Works really well, really brings the power out. So now that we've done our baseline testing with our H&N Barracudas, I'm going to shoot a few JSP Beast pellets through it at 16 grains to see what kind of speed we get and see what the maximum foot-pounds of energy we can get. So I'm just going to run that test at 20 pumps and shoot a string of about 5 and get an idea what kind of FPE we're talking about. Okay guys, we just ran a string of 5 shots at 20 pumps using JSP Beast pellets at 640 feet per second average. So that's pretty stout. That's going to be really close to 15 foot-pounds of energy. So that's quite a significant increase from factory again. So 15 foot-pound energy, 901. That's pretty serious for small game hunting. That'll handle anything you want to tackle: squirrels, rabbits, birds, even raccoons at fairly close ranges. Because sending a 177 caliber Beast pellet at 15 foot-pounds of energy is going to have no problem shooting clean through, say for instance, a raccoon's head. So it makes a really effective small game gun. And with that kind of energy and speeds, you know, for small game hunting, even shots out to 50 yards, if you can hold the groups for hunting at that distance, you'll have plenty of power to make the kill. So in any case, it's been a fun experiment. I did this just to see how it would work. I've never had a 901, so I wanted to try it out and try the power mod in it. But man, I've just got so many air rifles right now. I'm gonna probably just throw this one up on the bay and take whatever we get for it and get a different gun and do another project and post the results on it. I know there's been a lot of interest in Model 35s lately, so we may get a 35 and tinker with it and see what we can do. And I've also got an idea for a pack gun. I'm not sure if I'm going to use a 880 or a 1977, but the idea with it is to reduce the barrel length to very short, stick a small moderator on it, and probably maybe even a folding stock, do a total minimalist build with an 880 or a 1977. If we do the 880, we'll power mod it and probably lose the forearms, go super minimalist, and something you can fold up easily, drop in a pack and go. So that's one idea for one project. Another idea is, again, looking at the 35. But in any case, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys later.